That's Joe Swinson, the government's Consumer Affairs Minister. Fergus Muirhead is here. He's a personal finance writer. Joins us to chat about this more. So, Fergus, basically what this means, you might keep all your receipts and your bills and you've got the rough information, but this would give us access to all the data which would maybe allow us to understand how we could get a better tariff for getting cheaper energy and that kind of thing. That's got to be a good thing, hasn't it?
I think on the surface it's a great thing. If you just take your example there about receipts, I mean, how many times do we go into shops and have an argument about shop staff about taking things back because we can't find a receipt and they want us to find a receipt and we can't find proof of purchase, and we have a big argument about whether we can get a refund or get an exchange. Just imagine that if all that data was available, or well, it is available online, but if the shops gave it to us, and I get really frustrated sometimes in shops because you feel like saying to them, you know that I bought this here because you've already got a record of it, just you look into your records and tell me. And if that's what Joe Swinson is saying is going to be available, then even from that one example, it must be a good thing.
So an energy supplier would know when I put the heating on and what time of day, and therefore which tariff might be best for me, but I don't necessarily know. So this would allow me to make a better choice. It
would allow you to make a better choice, and I think what the government is saying, and what Joe seemed to be saying today, is that at the moment you can go onto a price comparison website, but you've got to have all the information to input to the price comparison website in the first place. And if all that information is given to you because the government already has that, or because the energy companies already have that, then that must make the searching job for you an awful lot easier, because you don't have to individually input all the data yourself. So the information is there, it's just that we can't access it at the moment.
Easier in a way because it becomes possible, but it sounds incredibly complicated to me. I mean, getting all this data, I know, potentially from supermarkets and from phone companies and everything, you'd just be overwhelmed with your own information, wouldn't you?
Well, I think to a certain extent you will, and I think that's where it gets dangerous, because the government and these companies already hold so much information about us. I think the cynic in us would naturally say, is this being introduced for our benefit or for the benefit of the companies themselves? And what do they do with all that information? They tell us, the supermarkets tell us, for example, that all the information they hold about us, they use to give us better deals. They use us to give us discount vouchers and to cut the prices of the goods that we buy. But I think the cynics in us say, well, that's not necessarily always the case. So I think it depends on how that information is going to be used. I can see some really good areas, certainly in terms of personal finance. I think a lot of us struggle with putting a budget together that shows how we spend money on a regular basis. And I think if our credit card companies and our banks can give us back the information in a sensible, easy to understand forum that shows us how we're spending money on a day-to-day or month-to-month basis, it's easier.
Some of the banks and credit card companies do that already.
Some of them do.
Online, and they should show you how much you've spent on fuel and how much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great thing, and I think what we're saying is that some companies do that at the moment and some don't, and what the government is saying is that if the ones that don't currently do it continue not to do it, then the government will have to legislate at some point to force them to do it, because I think that those of us who use the companies that do give us that information find it really useful.
So it sounds like generally personal finance is getting increasingly personal, lots more information, maybe more responsibility for the consumer to take control for themselves, though, as well.
I think that's the other side of the coin, that if all that information is there, if we're going to use it, then the consumer does have to, or is going to have to engage much more with their personal finances. I think that's, as someone who's heavily involved in personal finance, one of the issues I have is that people don't control their money on a day-to-day basis. They let their money control them. And I think to make use, if we're going to make use of all that information, it has to be to make our personal finances work a bit easier for us.
OK, Fergus, thank you very much indeed. Thanks for that.